Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, of course, Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville, Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville. And if you need a place to shop to get all of your beverage needs for the Titans game on Sunday or any college football games you're watching on Saturday, make sure you swing by Sinkers Beverages. Sign up for the in-crowd. Follow them on the socials, and you'll have access to all those great allocations and access to all those special drops, as the kids say. Nick, I think, is that right?
I say that all the time.
Do you have can you drop a bottle of bourbon? Like you drop a pair of Nikes? I don't know.
I was about to say that might be a party foul, but you can drop a bottle of bourbon.
You can. And they do it quite frequently at Sinkers, and it's always really good stuff that you can't get anywhere else. So make sure you sign up for the in-crowd at Sinkers Beverages, huge walk-in beer fridge. And, of course, search Uber Eats Sinkers Beverages. Search Sinkers Beverages on Uber Eats and have the booze delivered directly to your house. They drive so you can drink, Nick, which could happen a lot Sunday afternoon if Malik Willis comes into town and beats Will Levis, Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and the organization that drafted him and then sent him to Green Bay, along with the former offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur. All right, so we're going to get to a lot of stuff today on the show. We'll touch on some SEC stuff a little bit later on, like we do every Thursday, kind of get you ready for week number 4. I can't believe it's already week 4. Tennessee at Oklahoma. You've got Arch Manning making his debut for Texas, and, of course, the Florida saga continues to roll. League-wide offenses are down right now in the NFL. I know you want to touch on that. Obviously, Will Levis handling the pressure of his cell phone number being attacked, and, of course, we're also going to get into the quarterback-coach relationship, how that's developed and how that works, and then we'll start here with Malik Willis, because I do think, and I realize I'm being part of the problem here by starting the show on Malik Willis when I believe that Malik Willis is too much of the conversation. He is leading all shows. He is the star of everything. He's the conversation point. He's the guy they had that wasn't very good, and then they traded him, and now he's coming back in some random way. Adam Schefter, we should note, did report that Jordan Love, there's a chance, a 50-50 chance. There's sources inside the building telling him there's a chance that Jordan Love plays. I think that is purely gamesmanship. Famous last words, Nick. But that strikes me as pure gamesmanship from Matt LaFleur, and that, sure, it's good that Jordan Love will be back earlier than expected, but probably not this week in Nissan Stadium. So ultimately, I do think the Malik Willis thing is overblown. If the Titans lose, I don't feel like it's going to be because of Malik Willis. And it's certainly not some referendum on their decision to go with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph over Malik Willis. So I don't know. I think he's getting way, way, way too much coverage and taking up too much oxygen in this conversation.
Yeah, it's an agree and disagree situation for me because, fundamentally, I agree. We're talking about him too much, but I disagree in the sense that I want to talk about it. It's fun. It's really fun to be talking about this right now. Let's not diminish the fact that it's really cool to talk about narratives just because we think we're these smart, rational football thinkers. We are. But let's also just acknowledge the reality here that 24 days ago, this dude was on the Tennessee Titans. And
okay,
now
when you put it like that, Nick.
Yeah. Now he is probably going to start a football game against the Tennessee Titans. That is really rad. And we can make this a referendum on what Titans decision-making has been. I asked Callahan the other day if he watched that Packers game and saw reflections of what he would have done with Malik Willis had Malik Willis been his quarterback. And he's like, yeah, we saw some stuff. We saw some similarities. But what we saw from that Packers-Colts game last week sure as heck wasn't what the Titans were doing with Malik Willis 2 years ago. Wasn't what they were doing with him last year. It looked like an offense that was really intricate. I compared it to watching Gus Malzahn coach against Akron or something. Just one of those run-based offenses that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a lot of motion. We're going to have a lot going on in the backfield, and then we're going to jam it down your throats. And that was really cool to see whether Malik was that much of a factor or not. And as a geeky football fan, I'm looking at this and thinking that's going to be cool to see a quarterback who is having his strengths maximized in a place that is pretty uniquely set up to maximize his strengths. Does this mean that, the Titans should have kept Malik Willis and maximized his strengths here? Of course not. That's not what we're saying.
But I do think fans, to your point about it's fun to have the conversation, I do think that's what fans are focused on, which is if X happens on Sunday, it means we should have done Y. And that's just not how this sport works. It's not how Willis works. I agree to your point. I think Matt LaFleur, and I've said this for a long time, I think more of the Packers' success recently is more LaFleur, less Jordan Love. I just think he's that good, and they've drafted a bunch of pieces where there's not a true number one at anything, and they are willing to use all of them in every single possible way. And that gives him the freedom to do everything that he wants in his playbook. And I think Jordan Love has been good at that. I think Willis managed it very well last week. But if they give up 237 rushing yards in the first half, the Titans, on Sunday, it's not because of Malik Willis. Like, I just, you can say that he played well or that he managed the game well, or like, I watched every play of the Colts game, the Packers Colts game. There's not a moment in that game where I felt comfortable as a fan with Malik Willis having to win the game for them.
My question is, how much of that was coaching related, scheme related, and how much of that was just the noise in the back of your head talking about the Malik Willis you'd seen in the past? Like, is your confidence born from your knowledge of Malik Willis, or is your confidence born from the Malik Willis you were seeing Sunday?
That's a good question. It's both. Hopefully, a smarter person does. Like, I don't act like a fan very often, and
sure.
If I do it when I'm with my daughters at the game. So Sunday from noon to 3, I will be acting like a fan with my daughters at the game. When I am around my daughters, I want to show them what a fan looks like and how they behave, hopefully in like a normal adult rational way. But every other time I even watch my favorite teams, I still watch it like I do this job. And so when I watch that game, yes, you are right. I have in the back of my head every single practice I've watched of Malik Willis. There's no way to not have that in there. Am I impressed with the way LaFleur, to your point, took Willis's skills and put them in the right place? And then I think they happened to line up against the Colts front seven that was banged up, against a quarterback who is turning the football over a little bit. I think the Packers defense is better than people expect. But I don't never did I think they were playing around Malik Willis, not through Malik Willis. And that
sure.
is that to me, everything I saw was what I saw from him for the Titans. I just saw a coach use him and maybe maximize him. And because of the situation around him, I think it was they were able to win a football game. I don't know if you can ask Malik Willis to win a second game. I really don't. And I think it's an indictment more on the Titans and less pro Willis if they were to lose on Sunday to the Packers.
Oh, and I agree with you there, but now we're getting into the semantics of what's the difference between input and output. Because if you're talking about a good quarterback winning a game in spite of coaching, or a not as good quarterback winning a game because of coaching, your team has still won. The output is the output.
Yeah.
And so that is not a defense of anything. But if we want to parse, did they win because of Malik, or was Malik helping facilitate the win because of a game plan or this or that? When I asked some dudes in the locker room about Malik the other day, Mason Rudolph, the first thing he said was, the dude is one of the quickest learners I've ever seen in a quarterback room. And that's one person's perspective. I'm not saying that's gospel or anything, but if you look at a guy who had 1 week to install a brand new game plan and go out and execute it, this is still the NFL. I don't think that backups in the NFL are as good as starters in the NFL. And I know the Colts are hurt, but he had 9 days from that game in Rio to figure out how to win a game. And he did it. Good for him.
I get it, but that means he had more than one full day per pass attempt to study. You know what I mean? He worked on the one pass play on day 1. He worked on the second pass play on day 2. He worked on the third pass. This is not an anti-Malik Willis take here. It's just he threw the ball. I think he was 4 of 5 in the third quarter at one point. So again, my issue is I think after the game, if they were to lose, first of all, it will be absolute meltdown on Twitter, on Sports Talk Radio, on this show, the comment section. It'll be a complete meltdown. I think that meltdown should be happening I think it's going to happen because it's Willis, and it should be happening for other reasons. If Levis makes another huge mistake, that's meltdown worthy. If the defense, Sweat, Simmons, and all these front seven players that have been much better than expected, Ernest Jones, if they cannot stop the run and can't make plays, I am more concerned, and can't get a turnover like they haven't in the first 2 games. That's a reason to be upset and to be frustrated with the team. I just think it's all going to end up focused on him. Now, I will say this. I think the one area where the Willis storyline is maybe appropriate is with the owner of the team. And Amy Adams Strunk has shown us through 2 different situations where really bad optics matter to her. Maybe too much. I don't know. But John Robinson was fired after the straw that broke the back on his tenure, of course, the Eagles game, watching A.J. Brown go off and the fans taunt her inappropriately as Philly fans want to do at the game. I said it last year when they lost to Houston, in the Oilers uniforms at home with a big lead to a backup quarterback making a comeback, that had to be the bottom for the Mike Vrabel era to continue. Turns out it was the bottom, and it was the end, in my opinion. It was terrible, terrible optics. It just looks really bad, and optics matter to brands, and NFL teams are big brands. And so Amy thinks that way, I think. And so that's the issue here. It doesn't mean she's going to make any decisions like, oh, we got to think about a different quarterback, or like I've got a verdict now on Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson. Like, I don't think that's happening, but it will matter to her more than it matters to anybody else.
It might. I think that's a really solid point. The interesting part about the optics, though, to me, is how much of it is going to be focused inward. I think you're right about a lot of people talking about Malik, but you're also going to be looking at your first 0-3 start since 2009. You're going to be looking at your first coach who started 0-3 in a non-interim role since 1984. Like, this is going to be not a referendum, obviously. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, blow it up, you made bad decisions. But I think that 0-3 is going to look a lot more burning the hole in the franchise than who the opponent was in one game.
I agree. That's why I think the Titans win. But we're not a prediction show, really. No. I know you don't feel that way. Though.
I have picked the Packers in this one, and I will tell you it's not because I think Malik Willis is going to have a great day.
See? Exactly. After all that, you're just like, I picked the Packers, but it has nothing to do with Malik Willis.
Not nothing to do with him, but less to do with him than the Titans.
All right. Well, why are they losing then? Give me the breakdown of what happens. Because, the turnovers are an issue. The quarterback's a question, all the same stuff. We did have progress from the quarterback last week, despite the boneheaded mistake. Why are the Packers winning, in your opinion?
The turnovers are the turnovers, and I think the Packers are really good at creating turnovers. They're number one in the NFL in most turnovers generated so far. Titans obviously number one in most turnovers given away. So that's a matchup you never want to see. But I'll also say it's concerning when the Titans are still talking about, well, we just got to stop having 3 and outs. Like, if half of your drives are just going nowhere, I want to see that not happen before I start picking the Titans again. Like, I am confident that it can keep going. I said this last week after the first touchdown drive against the Jets. When we saw this team functioning offensively in training camp, it looked like that. It was 5-yard play, 5-yard play, 6-yard play, 6-yard play. You're not moving backwards. You're not having these big plays. You are just working forward. And that's boring. Like, that is vanilla football. That is not what fans want to see. But that's how the Titans are going to have to work offensively right now to succeed at this phase, at this juncture. So the fact that we're only seeing that twice a game right now, these sustained drives, it's harder to win that way, to go out and dominate an opponent play after play and sustain a 12-play drive, than it is to just connect on a 60-yard pass. But the 60-yard passes don't come because those are a lot more mistake prone. And this team's making a lot of mistakes right now. And I know I'm talking in circles about, well, you just got to be better at offense. You just got to be better at offense. You just got to be better at offense. But sometimes you just got to be better at offense. And until I see it, which I'm not ruling out that we can see it, but until I see it, I have a hard time putting confidence in this team. And also, just like, this defense the Packers have has been really good. I like their safeties. I like their pass rush. I like their defensive line. The 2 interior defensive linemen is as good of a duo as Sweat and Simmons, if not more productive so far this season. It's a good group. It's a good defense.
There are a lot of first-round picks on the defense. There's a lot of first-round picks. Some of them not living up to standards, but still contributing. But there's a lot of first-round picks on that defense. So it's funny. So I think you mentioned the long drives and how it looked in practice when it was going right, and then how it hasn't looked in the game. But I will say, and I've done the drive chart thing too, and I've looked at all 23 possessions and been like, well, 10 were 3 and outs and 5 were turnovers. That's 15 out of your 23 drives ended real bad. That's not good. 14 of them went for less than 10 yards. However, to your point, and I do think this is lost, and I think there's a larger patience conversation that we had on Monday with PK. And of course, you can catch his show, by the way, coming up today at 1:00 on Paul's YouTube page. DeAndre Hopkins is hurt. It's Brian Callahan's second game as a play caller. Like 2/3 of the offense around Will Levis is new. The offensive line is the youngest in the NFL, very talented, but the youngest in the NFL that we knew was going to take time to develop in the pass sets in particular. Like there's a lot of reasons why patience is smart here. And it's why I think the Malik Willis thing is so overblown, because fans are going to immediately reduce it down to shouldn't have traded him, didn't need Levis. Like that's what's going to happen. And it's very dumb and it hurts my brain. But here's the thing. You mentioned the long sort of sustained drives and how they looked in practice. In Chicago, against Chicago, 8 plays, 79 yards, touchdown, 14 plays, 73 yards, touchdown. Those are the 2 times it happened.
Sure.
The entire game looked very good. The Tony Pollard touchdown, the Chig touchdown looked very good, looked like it's supposed to look. Second half, terrible. Okay, block punt, special teams, turnovers, all bad. Second game, though, to your point, 9 plays, 68 yards, 10 plays, 72 yards, 8 plays, 51 yards, 5 plays, 79 yards, 13 plays, 56 yards. There were 5 sustained long drives. So they more than doubled their good driveness. That's an official metric in the second game. And so Levis and Callahan said this: better footwork, better accuracy, better processing, better timing. One big giant dumbass mistake again. And if you get that out of there, you can see the progress. And I think that could happen again this week. If you can do what you did with the Jets game, but take out the one big mistake, that's still yet another step of progress. And I think that's all Titans fans should be rooting for right now. If the win comes, great, you take it. But maybe I'm very, very cynical about this.
No, I think that, again, that's an input-output thing of what you're trying to see is this going to work big picture? And it's much easier to tell about the big picture from input than it is from did they win the game?
Yeah.
And they might not win the game, but if that progress keeps happening, if they go from 2 sustained drives to 5 sustained drives to 6 or 7 in this game, yeah, you might win, but more importantly, you're just sitting there thinking, oh, good, they looked better. And that's something to have confidence in, because I don't know, man. I think that they were better against the Jets, but end of the day, output-wise, they scored 17 points. That's what the Titans have been scoring for 3 years. So, like, something's got to budge.
Well, output this week, over under total passing yards in the whole game by both teams, 200.5. I'm taking the under, which brings us to the quarterback-coach relationship, and I know you've had some insight on that, and I'm curious how you think it's developing. This is where going back to the patience conversation seems smart, which is you've got a play caller who's also learning. I already just mentioned all the other contextual factors that are important to this conversation. What do you make of that relationship? Because I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is the personal study buddy. like the way that they have to sit down next to each other in a moment of privacy. And are they talking the same language? Are they on the same page? Callahan has said that they are, that he's happy with what Will Levis voiced to him about the mistakes in the first game. Right. What do you make of that relationship and how it's developing?
Want to play a quick game real quick?
Sure. Do I?
I'm just not going to give you a number, just a tier. Give me your tier 1 quarterbacks of the 21st century. However many you think fill up tier 1.
Like since 2000?
Since 2000. Best quarterback since 2000.
Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Mahomes. Who am I missing? I'm sure there's somebody in there.
You want to throw Drew Brees in there?
Drew Brees for sure. I don't know if I wouldn't put Big Ben on that tier. If we're talking like elite, you know, I think
those were the 5 I had. You can throw Lamar Jackson in if you want, but that was what I had in my head.
He's got to win more than one playoff game in a year.
Okay, so we're sticking with the 5.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
The best offensive coordinator turned head coach among those 5 players is Bill O'Brien.
No way.
You want me to run through them all?
So the best offensive coordinator turned head coach.
So was an offensive coordinator for one of those 5 quarterbacks.
Okay.
And then became a head coach. Brady's options are Josh McDaniels, Bill O'Brien, and bonus round Charlie Weiss if you want.
Yeah.
Peyton's options.
Does Brian Daboll count?
He was never an OC.
He wasn't.
If you want to put Josh Allen in tier 1, he does.
That's true.
Peyton, his 2 OCs turned head coaches were Mike McCoy and Adam Gase.
Oh, brutal.
Breeze were Cam Cameron and Doug Marrone.
Marrone was terrible.
Okay. Rodgers was Joe Philbin and Nathaniel Hackett. And Mahomes so far has been Matt Nagy.
So what you're telling me is it's the quarterback, not the coordinator.
What I'm saying is that there are functionally 3 tiers of quarterbacks in the NFL. Quarterbacks who win in spite of coaching, quarterbacks who win because of coaching, and quarterbacks who don't win. And the situation the Titans are in right now is they have a head coach who was an offensive coordinator for an elite quarterback. Joe Burrow is in that top tier of modern guys. He's not in the top tier yet of these Rodgers and Mahomes.
Agree, though, with where you're going with this, though. Yeah.
You have a guy who his success has been predicated on working with Peyton Manning, working with Matthew Stafford, working with Joe Burrow. And being a quarterback whisperer means getting the best out of those guys. I am not diminishing Callahan's success at any of those stops. But he's now working with a quarterback in Will Levis who doesn't have those proven bona fides that Peyton did when Brian started working there, or that Stafford did when Brian started working there, and who isn't in the situation Joe Burrow was and hasn't had the immediate ability to. You're right, he did work with Derek Carr, but again, Derek Carr was slightly established.
Although we're seeing that Derek Carr,
did he work with Tebow? I thought that was the year before he got there.
I don't think he worked with Tebow, but
he might have for 1 year.
That was from Chef. That was a comment from Chef Rain. So
he might have. I truly don't remember the timeline. But the point I'm making here isn't that, oh, this means Callahan's going to be a bust, or oh, this means Levis needs to be a superstar for it to work. I'm saying that you have guys who are coming at it from 2 really different perspectives. Of Levis last year had to play a lot of hero ball, and Callahan in the past has had to work with quarterbacks who are these top tier, can win without anything else guys.
The way he described it, just so to clarify that, the way he described it in a conversation before becoming the head coach was there are 2 types of quarterbacks in the NFL. There are guys that are system quarterbacks, and then there are guys that are the system.
Yeah.
And he always said that Burrow was the system. Sorry.
And we've yet to see Levis become the system. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, not even. I think there's like 5 guys that are the system. I think everybody else is a system quarterback.
And so we are trying to feel out, well, what's the system right now? And I think they've got a good idea of what they want the system to be. One of the things that I thought was pretty incisive when Will said it post-game the other day was him talking about how the book on him coming out of college was that he forced too many throws into tight windows, and that was what people talked about with the reckless decision-making. Now that's not what he's doing. Like, when people talk about Will Levis's recklessness, it's such a different kind of recklessness than the recklessness he exhibited at Kentucky. I think that they've figured out, I think it was yesterday, Callahan said something along the lines of, if I call a deep shot and it's not there, the thing I tell Will every time is, I'll call it again. Don't force it. I'll call it again. And with the exception of the interception in Chicago at the end of the game on a 4th down where he was just trying to make something happen, I think Levis has more often than not dirted a pass or thrown a check down or done the thing that is against book on Will Levis. Now, there's a next step in growth.
So are the other 2 things. Yeah. Those are also against the book on all human brain functioning.
Yeah. And so that's the next step of growth is
right.
The scheme is there. What the Titans want to do is there. It's just doing it. And is that a coaching thing? Is that a quarterback thing? Is that a coach-quarterback relationship thing? That's going to keep developing. But the plurality of evidence about hiring offensive coaches is the dudes who are the most successful were the guys working with Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger and that second and third tier of quarterback, because they had to be more creative.
Yep. I agree. Top tier says not worried about Callahan. He's scheming people open. I generally agree.
Same.
And again, I think there was enough progress in the second from week 1 to week 2 that if the big dumb mistake is taken out of this and there's a slight step forward, you've made huge progress from week 1 to week 3, if that's the case. So I think there's plenty. Like, again, I do think, and again, maybe it's the cynical sort of non-fan media brain, pickled brain in me that says, like, no, context is pretty important here. And if you run through the list of things around Will Levis, of course it's going to take a little patience. Like, of course.
Sure.
You got all these new pieces, a new offense, a young offensive line, your top target from last year's injured, a new coordinator, a new coach, a new system, and it's your first year ever starting from week one. Like, let's be patient on this. I don't have a problem with that. Now, it's also a meritocracy, and the NFL is, what have you done for me lately? Not for long. I get all of that stuff as well. So we shall see. All right, Sinkers Beverages, by the way, for all your beverage needs over the weekend and any other day of the week, make sure you pop in there. 3-time liquor store of the year, as voted on by you, the Nashvillians. Best of Nashville scene, of course. They've won that award 3 straight times. They're a 3-time defending champion. You can pop in there. They've got it's a huge walk-in beer fridge. They've got a huge wine selection. You're not a wine guy, are you? Are you a wine guy? You could be a wine person, couldn't you?
I'm not really a things that are alcoholic person
at all. You're one of those young people.
I drink, but I don't. This is a bad sales pitch for something that is sponsored by a liquor store.
Okay. Look, they've got non-alcoholic, they've got THC beverages, they got all kinds of stuff in there. So
I am not an acquired taste person. If somebody tells me, "Hey, you'll like this, but you got to drink it 10 times," I'm like, "That's not worth it. I'm not going to."
So what? Like somebody asked you to like drink Malort or something? Like, because Malort, no one should acquire that taste.
No, but just like in general, alcohol in general doesn't taste as good as soda or water.
Oh, soda
tastes worse.
Soda's disgusting. No,
soda's the best tasting thing on earth, and that's why I don't drink it anymore. I can't control myself.
Well, I'm glad you're on the wagon. So if you do go out to dinner, you and the wife go out to dinner, like, do you have a glass of wine? Do you have a martini? Like, do you have a beer? What do you have?
I will usually have a glass of water, but I can drink beer. I have no problem.
Beer? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They've got a huge beer selection. I am not a wine. All of that was to get to me saying I'm not a wine guy either. I don't drink a lot of wine. I don't know what good wine is. I don't know how to smell wine. I don't know how to swirl wine. I don't know how to do anything with wine. But you know who does? Sinkers Beverages. So I had some in-laws in town this week, and I'm having a lot of my family in town this weekend. And it's like, hey, we're gonna have a dinner. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Hey, can you pick up this? Wife says, hey, go to the store. What are we having? Okay, we're gonna have this. I have no clue what to pair it with. I have no clue what's a good value. I go into the store and I go, hey, shout out to my guy Joey and Grant and Emily, and I say, hey, I got this many people. I need this kind of wine for this kind of food. What do I do? And they give me what I need. I don't have to think about it. I don't need to know anything. They provide the service to me. They take care of me, and everyone at the table is real happy with a nice, good quality glass of wine. And I didn't spend too much money on it. That's what I care about.
That's the dream.
Because I don't know shit about wine. Yeah. I don't. But I do know about my bourbons. If you like bourbon, you can go in there and get a lot of good bourbon. So I do know my bourbon. Okay. All right. Soda's it's like ketchup. It's a child's beverage. It's a child's condiment. So
I don't disagree.
I'm just proud that my 7-year-old doesn't like it. My 6-year-old is obsessed with it, but my 7-year-old will not drink anything that's bubbles. And I'm like, that's going to do you well. You're going to do all right in life if you don't drink a lot of bubbly stuff. So.
No, I truly do have to have a rule for myself that from the first day of training camp through the end of the Super Bowl, I am off all sodas and caffeines. I just don't.
No caffeine to you?
No.
So how are you relaxed at any point during your life?
You've seen my energy this time of year, and that is uncaffeinated.
That's nuts.
Just don't imagine what I would be like caffeinated. It's not okay.
I'm older than you. I'm in a different phase. I've got kids. Coffee is a miracle drug that keeps everyone over 40 still functioning and productive in society. I'm convinced. And it reduces the risk of Alzheimer's and colon cancer. So it's not bad for you the way soda and alcohol is. So,
but again, to talk about acquired tastes, I had one sip of coffee on my honeymoon on a coffee farm in Costa Rica and then gave it to my wife and said, nah, I'm good. And then walked away.
God, that's so sad.
I'm not going to acquire that taste. I don't want to learn how to like something. I either like it or I don't.
That's so sad though. Coffee is one of the most amazing smells and tastes in the world.
I agree. It smells good. I don't need it.
Just put a little cream in there, man. No sugar, just cream. Costa Rica, that's where we went on our honeymoon as well. So we went to the Osa Peninsula and stayed in a rainforest down there. It's pretty cool. I recommend Costa Rica. It's very cool. All right. I recommend the Tennessean as well. Make sure you go subscribe to the Tennessean. You can read all of Nick's work there, and it's excellent stuff. Go check it out. I know you got a piece up there about sort of all this quarterback development and patience and Will Levis and all that stuff, so go check that out. I am curious, though. This cell phone thing is hilarious to me because you read about this every now and then, and I'll let you kind of lay out what happened here. I guess fans got a hold of his number. Like, who leaked the number? Do we know?
I have not gotten to the bottom of that yet.
Okay, all right.
Just some jabroni, I guess.
Yeah, that's the right word. But like what? So normally you see these stories And it's the opposing fans that have gotten a hold of a player or a coach's cell phone number, and they are tormenting them throughout the week leading up to a match of some sort. That is normally what happens. I cannot remember the last time. I think there was a kick. Who was it? Was it Peyton Thorne for Auburn, the quarterback for Auburn, who's been benched? And he was being told on Twitter, people were sending him Venmo requests. He threw 4 interceptions against Cal last week or 2 weeks ago, and people were sending him Venmo requests for their money back for their tickets.
Was it?
Which is funny, admittedly.
And then the flip side of it, was it Stetson Bennett who his number got leaked and then he ran for a touchdown and immediately put the phone up to his ear?
Yeah. So like normally it's trash talk. It's from the opposing fan base. Very rarely is a cell phone number leaked to your own fan base to torment you, the player for your team. That is not a normal thing.
To be clear, Will did not specify who was texting him. He just said the number was leaked. He did not say it was Titans fans. That might be a little bit of reading between the lines on our part, but in the NFL,
get some clarification on that, Nick. Come on.
It was the last question, and he was walking away, and he seemed pretty sad about it. We're not like, hey, rank the top 5 meanest texts you got. Like that.
That would be damn funny though.
That did not seem to be in the spirit of the moment. But
oh god, that's funny.
I don't know, man. I feel like the Titans are an NFL organization where what fan base is going to be taunting Will at week 2 in the season? I don't think Jets fans are going to be texting him right now. You fumbled that play. Like you might get some from a Colts fan or a Jaguars fan here or there.
No,
but
this is Titans fans. This is Titans fans. In my opinion, allegedly.
Again, I am not going to speculate, but I totally understand why that is your perspective.
I'll be irresponsible. It's okay. So look here. There isn't. So what this ultimately, like, we can laugh tongue in cheek, have fun with it, and certainly it's not fun when you have to change your cell phone number. I've had the same number for like 20 years, and I would be upset if I had to change it. So I get that, and being tormented and harassed by your own fans allegedly is that's kind of shitty. Just in general, it's just not cool. I don't understand fans that, and I know that there's plenty of you watching and listening that are diehards and that you get wrapped up in this stuff. You're emotional. It's what you're supposed to do. I get all of that, but I never understood like tweeting at recruits who pick a different school from yours. I don't understand, sending death threats to kickers. Like I don't understand the people that want to text Will Levis. It doesn't register with me, so I don't get it. But there is an element of outside noise that he is going to have to process. And he has to handle it and manage it. And the only way he can do that is inside his own head and inside his little circle of confidants that he can talk to privately about this stuff offline. That's the only way that he's the only one that he's got to manage it. No one else can help him with this.
Yeah. And like, unless Chef ran in the comments is secretly Rusty Smith and I didn't know it, most of us here are not former NFL quarterbacks. We do not know what. Sorry, guy, you're the first name I saw. I'm not picking on anybody.
Yeah, I don't think he said anything about this. Chef Rand said it's a part of sports, though. Same thing happens to coaches.
Truly just the first name I saw. But my point is, like, none of us have been through what this is. Nobody knows what the inundation of it's like. I can talk in my very narrow experience as a sports writer. There are 2 or 3 times in my life where I have received threat after threat after threat after threat for something I've written. And I would spend hours upon hours reading every single comment of somebody. I remember the time somebody, word for word, typed a tweet at me that said, I hope somebody bakes shards of glass into your fucking oatmeal raisin cookies, you asshole.
At least it was creative.
And I'm like, that's a really good insult. I don't see what I've done to anger you so much, but cool. And so I would memorize this and internalize it. And then there was one year, it was during the NFL draft. I was still in Oxford and I was getting just absolutely mention bombed and people were crushing me. And I was ranting about it to my then fiance, now wife. And she just looks at me and goes, just don't look at it.
Don't open.
Just block it. And that's why when we were talking about before the show of why I have my mentions and my notifications so censored, it's because in that moment I looked at her and I was like, help me figure out how to block this. And we blocked everything of I don't get notifications from this or that or the other. And I'm not an NFL quarterback. My mistake was writing about an NFL quarterback. The scrutiny was secondhand. That's firsthand scrutiny. I cannot imagine the absolute cesspool that it is. It's bad.
Well, No, so this is a really interesting kind of a side topic here because my wife doesn't understand this stuff either. Where it's like people will say really awful stuff to you as if you're a sports talk radio host or a commentator or a reporter or a writer. People will say terrible things to you, especially because they think they get the keyboard muscles and they're in their mom's basement drinking a 48-ounce Mountain Dew, probably soda, and tweeting mean things at people, and it makes them feel good for a moment, and that's what they do. And so I've always had to just sort of brush it off and say whatever. Like when Tennessee went through the Schiano stuff and they had the Game of Thrones palace intrigue, backstabbing with Fulmer and John Curry and that whole thing, Schiano Sunday, like I was genuinely pissed off as a Tennessee alumni about it. And it was the hardest 2 weeks of sports talk radio that I've ever done as an alumni of the school. And I felt completely embarrassed. And it was very emotionally draining for me after 2 weeks of doing that. Are we some heroes because we do this? Of course not. But it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you at some point. And I do think it's a balancing act because part of the job, the reason you make the amount of money that Will Levis is making is to deal with this kind of criticism. Is it okay? Is it right? No. But is it part of the job? Yes. And so I don't know, like sending death threats to kickers, that's across the line. Sending tweets to recruits, that's across the line. What that person sent to you is across the line. Leaking someone's personal information, doxing a quarterback is across the line. Yeah. But it also it does come with the territory. So it's a hard line to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, and like I'm bringing this up not to like, oh, poor anybody thing. It's like it's easy to get cynical when we hear about people saying, I'm locking in, I'm deleting social media, I'm focusing on the game. And like we hear that and it's, oh, that's athlete speak. That's a dude just saying what he needs to say. It's also good mental health advice. Like if a lot of people are talking about you, locking in and not looking at it is probably a good thing to do. And I don't know. I think that when you are in a position where the two options are fixate on what people are saying about you or ignore what people are saying about you, we should really commend the people who are ignoring it. And unless you're Kevin Durant, you shouldn't fixate on it. Like there is one person who has proven to be good at fixating on it. And like good for him. Great job, Kevin Durant. Everybody else.
But don't you think he's like wildly unhealthy mentally?
Sure, but
I don't think it's worked for his brain. His brain's all pickled too,
But it's worked for his production.
I guess.
Dude comes out.
How many rings he have out? How many rings he have outside of outside of Golden State? How many championship series has he played in? Anyway, look, I'm not going to get off on an anti-Kevin Durant tangent here. No, I think it's funny you mentioned him because I think he's the poster child for not being able to put it down. Like turn off the burners, bro. Like it's ridiculous. But again, it's also human nature to want to know what people say about you. Like I have zero. I heard. I listen to a lot of Scott Galloway, who's a Prof G. He's a really smart economics, business, technology, investment, psychology guy. I listen to a lot of him, and he's like, I don't care at all about what my loved ones think about me, but I really care about what a bunch of anonymous strangers think about me.
Same.
And it's a very real phenomenon that we care way more about the folks that are just out there commenting about us. And, hey, I said something stupid on a podcast, or, hey, it's no different than what getting criticized for writing. It's very strange, but it's human to be distracted by that stuff.
I don't want to misquote. Is it Mark Twain? I can live an entire year off the strength of a compliment of one stranger.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I think that's
you're the writer.
I saw that on a poster once in college. Like I'm not going to pretend I read Mark Twain on the regular.
I was worried. You said you're going to quote Mark Twain. I said, "Whoa, careful." Let's be careful of quoting Mark Twain. Chef says this is an interesting angle here, actually, because this is where I think Will does need to be different. Chef says Will is an easy target with his play on the field and the damn mayonnaise. I do think, and you wrote about this, and I think it's smart for him to do, but he's got to be careful about it, which is to intentionally make himself a part of the community in a leadership and face of the franchise kind of way, whether it's funny mayonnaise commercials or charity events or, whatever, how he's dating or going out to eat, whatever. With that, then also comes the overexposure that you've got to then deal with if you're going to make a bunch of mistakes. So that is something he has to deal with in only a way that a starting quarterback in the NFL can deal with it. So.
Something I'm curious about, and I'll probably ask Will about this someday soon. He said yesterday that when he's not doing anything, he's still on the couch watching football. I want to know how often he sees himself in that Mayotivations commercial. Because I'm watching college football on YouTube TV and I see it every second, every third commercial. It's constantly. I'm like, buddy, how does that feel to just be watching that and just be like, oh, it's me?
Yeah.
That's got to be different.
I mean, I would be like, from a pure marketing standpoint, I would be damn proud of how good those ads are.
They're good. They're really good.
They're legitimately good ads.
And I will plug, I talked to the creative director at Hellman's who talked to me specifically about why Will is such a good marketing persona. You guys can go read that. It's not the big long story. It's a sidebar from it, but it's fascinating that he describes Will's process as dude walks up to the commercial set and thinks he's doing Streetcar Named Desire. Like he is that plugged in.
Serious about it.
Yeah. He is that Leslie Nielsen in Airplane level of let's take this as straight as possible, and that's going to make it even funnier.
It looks like I picked a bad day to quit amphetamines. I think it's it's not surprising at all that he's like that. And he was like that at Kentucky. He's like that at Penn State. He's like that as master's degree. He's like that in his marketing. He's like that as a quarterback. It's also why he can't get out of his own head on the sidelines after a mistake, because he's so intense. And you can see the emotion. Like you can see him trying to manage the tension of him managing his emotion and processing his mistake at the same time and needing to calm down. Like you can see it happening in real time on the sideline, which is, it means he knows what he needs to do, but it means he's not quite there yet for the goldfish thing. You know, like the Ted Lasso goldfish, be a goldfish. You got to do that some, but you also got to fix the problems. And you could see him dealing with that on the sidelines in like real time. And it's what his attitude and his demeanor and his commitment, his passion is what's going to make him great. If he ever gets there, he's got to get through that, the part of it now where it's affecting him in a negative way. So we'll see. All right. Offense. Go to Sinkers Beverages, by the way. Sign up for good journalism at the Tennessean. Offense down league wide. What do you make of that? Uh-oh, Nick's frozen. In the middle of the show? I'm supposed to do the rest of the show by myself?
It's weird. I don't know. Am I frozen?
There you go. You're back. Keep talking. Your face is frozen.
You're moving. I am not
moving.
Can you hear me at all?
Okay. I can hear you. Keep going.
It's a weird face freeze. I'm so glad that I look so blank right now. I don't know. I think that people are making a lot out of offense being down, a lot out of passing offense being down. I think that something strange happened in football in the pandemic year where offense shot up to such a strange degree across all levels that teams were focused and tasked with this, oh, we got to fix it. And we're in this new era of defensive creativity and defensive protectiveness that's kind of unlike anything I've seen in my football watching years. I'm just fascinated by, I don't think this is because offense is bad. I think this is because defense is really, really good. And I saw a clip this morning going around of Mel Kiper on one of the ESPN morning shows talking about how football needs to ban the too high safety like baseball did the shift. Like that's how remarkable this strategy of defensive evolution is working. And as a football fan, I'm annoyed because I like big, cool, fun plays, but I'm also fascinated as just, it's really cool that this defensive stuff's happening.
Well, and Callahan has said as much. Look, you can point to literally Joe Burrow himself as the reason that and Mahomes, frankly, that they've gone to this too high safety look. It's permeated down to college football as well. It is how you can stop the super quarterback from explosive plays. That's what they're doing, is trying to stop the super quarterback from explosive plays. And they can do that with the too high safety look. The key is then what do you do off of that? And look, I don't have it in front of me, but if you give me a second to vamp here, I'll pull it up. I actually, so this is, don't ask me why I was doing this, but I wanted to see how good AI and ChatGPT would be with football scheme. And I went and played around with it, and I wanted to ask it a scheme question on both sides of the ball. And I said, my question was basically, how do you beat a too high safety look? was the question. And AI gave me back, ChatGPT gave me back, attack the intermediate areas, utilize the run game, stretch the field vertically, play action pass. You've got to freeze the linebackers, draw the safeties closer to the line, use motion and shift. Pre-snap motion can help identify coverages and create mismatches. Crossing routes, patterns that will confuse the defensive backs, checkdowns and screens, quick passing game. All that stuff is self-explanatory and basic, Nick, but it was funny that an AI learning model gave me 8 answers to how to defeat a 2-eye safety look.
I'm laughing right now. You can't see that I'm laughing right now.
That's a really great point I made. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I am just stone-faced about that. I don't know. I think back to, what was it, about 10 years ago when the 4-2-5 kind of took over college football as this, oh, well, how are you going to stop the 4-2-5 with a drop 8 coverage? And then teams figured out, just throw a bunch of checkdowns and you're going to run after the catch 10 yards at a time. I think that you're probably going to see that sort of thing. And Joe Burrow is the perfect example of that sort of thing. Patrick Mahomes, I think that I saw a stat the other day that he has thrown as many 40 air yard touchdown passes this season as he did in the last 2 combined. Just because teams weren't letting him do it anymore. So he stopped doing it, and the Chiefs just kept winning. And we're seeing this run game evolution with what San Francisco and Los Angeles and Miami and all these Shanahan disciple, McVay disciple offenses are doing. And Green Bay is no stranger to that. That's, I think, a big reason why the Titans have this, what they're up against this weekend. But I don't know. I am just so enthralled by how modern defense is as simple as just have a bunch of guys up. Don't put too much stress on trying to sack the quarterback, trying to create turnovers. Just don't let them beat you, and they won't beat you.
And what's really popular in the college level is sort of this tight 3-man defensive line with like a 3 safety look and like a dime defense. Like there's a lot of teams that are running that right now, which is really interesting. I don't know if that, because that is really designed to sort of force you to work the field for a long drive, forces you to be perfect on a bunch of plays, which then creates some mistakes, especially for college kids. I don't know if that translates to the NFL. I just don't know. Chef says, run the ball is the real answer. That is the case. If you have a light box and you're going to play a bunch of drop coverage and a bunch of high point safeties, like that, you got to challenge them in the middle. You got to challenge them around the line of scrimmage. And the Titans should be able to do that with their offensive line being stronger as a rushing offense, with their backfield being more experienced than even the receivers and the quarterback. That should be the answer in the NFL, but who knows? We'll see. But I am interested in that sort of that 3 down lineman, 3 safety look that's sort of starting to become very popular in college.
Which probably only increases the value of your big defensive linemen and your guards. Like we're already seeing that become such a value in the NFL contract-wise. It's only going to balloon.
So we'll keep an eye on I agree that it's not bad offense. I think that football is a cycle. It's a pendulum that swings back and forth. It goes from offense to defense, from defense back to offense. Sometimes it's rule changes. Sometimes it's players. Sometimes it's trends on offense or defense. And it's just we're in a defensive moment here, and then it'll swing back in a couple of years to offense, and that's just how the game works. Quickly here, we'll let you go, Nick. Always a pleasure hanging out with you. Sinkers Beverages, the Tennessean. Make sure you subscribe to the Tennessean, and then sign up for the in-crowd at Sinkers Beverages. Tennessee and Oklahoma, we got Arch Manning making his starting debut for the University of Texas. I've never seen a quarterback with this much hype and talent and expectations and profile all take over at a school that's number 1 in the nation. That's we've had Justin Fields backing up Jake Fromm. We had Tua backing up Jalen Hurts. We had Tebow backing up Chris Leak, all of which were very high-profile backups on very good teams. I don't think anything's close to what Arch Manning is going to get, and he's going to play UL Monroe and Mississippi State, and then get a bye week. It's perfect. It's perfect for Sarkisian to break Arch Manning in. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about Arch, and then we can get to Tennessee and Oklahoma.
I am happy that he is not crumbling under the pressure so far. Like, that is all I can root for with a guy making his first start with this much pressure, is that he is okay. Yeah. And I think he looks like he's going to be okay. Like, he looked real good on Saturday, and I am not talking down the Warhawks. I am not diminishing the Warhawks, but this is a good place for him to play 2.5 quarters and get out.
You could not have designed it better for Arch Manning to make his real first college football impact against UTSA, UL Monroe, Mississippi State in a bye week. It could not be designed in a better way for him to come in. And here's the thing: the 2 things he does not lack, talent and swagger. Not lacking for either of those 2 things.
Good. Sometimes you want your backup to be very, very different than your starter. In those 2 ways, he's very, very similar to the guy that comes before him. So that's a good setup.
Do you think Ewers gets back in the lineup, or do you think Arch
Yeah.
takes it away permanently?
Yes, I think Ewers gets back in the lineup.
What?
Yes,
All right,
I
how
do
about
think
this?
the guy who 10 days ago was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy will get
Okay.
back into the lineup.
Quinn Ewers comes back for the Oklahoma game, beats Oklahoma. He starts the Georgia game the following week. They're down 13-3 in the third quarter, and they've had 7 possessions and 1 field goal. It's going to be a pretty loud call for Arch to get back in the lineup. Just saying.
It will be loud. It will be unwarranted.
I don't know. Arch might be that good, dude.
I'm not going to overhype him or underhype him. He is exactly as good as I thought he would be, and that's awesome.
He's a Manning who can run. That's unstoppable, Nick. What are you talking about? We've never seen one of those.
Yes, we have. And famously, he was very stoppable in the NFL.
What?
Archie ran a lot, dude.
He was a great elite quarterback. What do you mean stopped? He wasn't stopped.
How many games did the Saints win?
That's not the point. Different football. I can't see how exasperated you are right now. Tennessee, Oklahoma. I think Tennessee's better at almost everything. I think Venables will have an interesting plan for Nico and might cause some problems there occasionally. But largely, if you look at these two teams, Tennessee's got the better system, the better offense, slightly better quarterback, even though I like Arnold. Way better offensive line, even better defensive line. They're just a little bit better at everything. And I don't think the off-the-field stuff, Nick, means anything. Like, Josh Heupel returning to Oklahoma in his alma mater and where he was a coordinator and getting fired, like that means nothing to the Oklahoma players. It means a lot to the Tennessee players. So if anything, fighting for your guy, for Coach Dad might mean they play better. I think maybe the first SEC game at home in Norman might mean something to Oklahoma and mean nothing to Tennessee. So maybe it sort of cuts both ways. I think Tennessee's just better. I don't know how you see this game.
I agree. You want to play the think back game. SEC trivia. Do you remember the first games Missouri and A&M played as members of the SEC in 2012?
The very first game? No, I don't.
The first SEC versus SEC games they played.
I don't know.
Missouri in 2012, their first game was at home against Georgia, and they talked a lot of smack about how Georgia played old man football, and Missouri was going to come in and revolutionize the SEC.
They still are playing old man football, by the way.
And Georgia,
if you watch the Kentucky game,
they very much are. Georgia smacked them in the mouth.
Yeah.
The first Texas A&M game was against Florida. That was a game that Texas A&M debuted a new quarterback named Johnny Manziel. Mm-hmm. I believe Florida won it pretty notably, but everyone was like, that guy, that quarterback, that's an interesting fella they got.
Yeah.
I think this is much more of a Missouri versus Georgia situation than it is a Texas A&M versus Florida situation. I think that Tennessee is going to say, welcome to the SEC, and then we'll see what happens. Not to clown on any specific news source, so I'll leave the source out, but I did see a article that went up this morning that was talking about, after years of defense being the name of the game in the SEC is really embracing modern offenses. And I was like, oh, gosh, where have you been for 11 years?
The only team not doing that is still just Georgia.
Yeah. And Georgia tried. They just were like, it's not going to work. Let's go back to being.
No, Todd Monken went to the NFL.
Yeah. And it worked. And Stetson Bennett's going to win a Super Bowl MVP someday, as people know I've argued for years. But
Florida won 20-17 in that game after Texas A&M was leading 17-7 in that game in 2012. There you go.
Thank you for Tony reallying that. Yeah,
you were right.
Yeah, no, I couldn't remember the score. Thank you. I don't know. I think that the brand of SEC football we've seen in the post Kiffin going to Alabama era, Tennessee is kind of the exemplification of it right now. And welcome to the league, Oklahoma. What a great challenge.
And what's so short-sighted about that commentary is no, it's not about not defense. It's about adding a super quarterback and interesting offense to a great defense.
Yeah.
And the reason Tennessee and Ole Miss could be very good this year, and when I mean very good, I mean like winning a playoff game, is because they have their super quarterbacks and they have their offensive systems and they have their offensive playmakers and they can do whatever they want on offense. And Kiffin has been great so far, even though they're not tested yet. It is that they are adding elite defensive fronts to that group. That's right. What Josh Heupel has slowly but surely recruited. Great defensive line talent. They rolled 10 deep up there. They got the number 1 pick in James Pierce potentially. They are loaded to that position. And Oklahoma has 5 new starters along the offensive line, and they look like it. And that's a problem if you're Jackson Arnold, the quarterback, who's very talented, but I just don't see it. So I got Tennessee there.
I do too. For what it's worth, my preseason pick, and I'll put it on the record on this podcast, I think that Oklahoma is going to be sitting at like 4-3, 4-4, something like that. Their last 3 games of the year, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, they're going to get hot. They're going to win some of those games. Ooh. They're going to be a trendy pick for next year. They're not going to be in the playoff, but Jackson Arnold and this offense is going to figure something out. Maybe they knock Missouri out of playoff contention. Maybe they knock Alabama out of playoff contention. It's a tough end to the schedule, but I'm sitting here saying they're going to have to get good late because it's going to be tough early.
No, I've always thought they're a 7-5 team, but they're better than their record indicates, and how they play down the stretch will tell us about who they are. I think that's smart though to look at where their trajectory and sort of see. Like, I think A&M's in the similar boat. Like they're going to have some tough times during the season, but by November they're going to be really good. And that's how I feel about A&M and Oklahoma. All right, quickly, who do you want to be the next head coach at Florida if they do, when they do make a move on Billy Napier? That's what I'm curious about.
The name I've been joking about is Brian Daboll.
That is a joke.
That's a joke. Would Joe Brady be willing to go back to college? That'd be real fun. I don't think he would, but that'd be real fun.
The issue is there's no real name. The two that are the most obvious are Eli Drinkwitz and Lane Kiffin. They will both be getting calls. Jimmy Sexton, I should say, is going to get a call from Florida. The problem is that there's nothing about the way the structure of the Florida athletic department and how chaotic it is behind the scenes and how the boosters are not organized. It is they have a messy house, to say the least, right now at Florida, and I don't trust them to make the firing decision well, and I don't trust them to make the hiring decision well. And if I'm a Florida fan, I don't trust that they're going to go out and do something gangster, which is what you got to do if you want to be great in the SEC. They don't really have an identity. They've kind of been slow on the uptick around the program from like an infrastructure standpoint, although Billy Napier should get a lot of credit for what he's done in that area. So they're way better off today than they were when he took over, but there's no name. There's no flashing neon name that says, come get me. This is the guy. Like there's none of that. I do think Eli Drinkwitz will be a top candidate, and I think he would do a very good job there. And I think he's oddly well-equipped to handle the job.
I would agree. I have been wrong about Eli Drinkwitz for week after week after week, game after game. He continues to be better than I thought he would be. It'd be a good fit there. Yep. I think that whatever happens, I'll just root for like that weird Joe Gibbs situation where Washington just went back and hired him 20 years after he was retired.
So Urban?
Just let Spurrier do it. Just let Spurrier do it for a year. Let's see what happens. Let's have a Spurrier is he in his 80s now?
I don't know, but I saw a clip of him on a social media platform talking about like guns in schools, and I was like, whoa, Steve Spurrier's come full circle.
Yeah, no, I would
like good for you, old ball coach. Good job.
I would love to see that man with modern offense, just as like a advisory assistant head coach, associate head coach role. That's what Florida needs to get its swagger back. Is that dude?
Has anyone ever done co-head coaches? Old heads, Ron Zook recruiting, and Steve Spurrier drawing up ball plays in the dirt. There you go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. One game though, quickly. I'm not going to ask for your opinion or pick on this. I just think everyone should pay attention to it because it's. And by the way, Florida's at Mississippi State. You lose that one, Mississippi State's bad. So if you lose that one, you're done. Arkansas and Auburn is always fantastically ridiculous, and so just check that one out because you got narratives, you got quarterback controversy at Auburn, you got Hugh Freeze, who's baby Billy's out there preaching, you got Sam Pittman, like the likable offensive line coach, but with Bobby Petrino drawing up good plays. That is going to be a fantastic football game. Not good football, but a fantastic game. So enjoy Arkansas and Auburn. That's my parting shot here on the show on Thursday. So
love it.
Otherwise, check out the Tennessean. You can also check out one of Nick's co-workers, peers on the Titans beat, Sam Phelan, who is on Lamestream Sports this week. That show comes out on Fridays. His Survivor episode started debuting, so we talked with him. He's going to be on the show next on Friday. We got Stephen Godfrey on SEC Football Live every Wednesday. You can check that out. We cover all this stuff and more. A lot of Florida talk, a lot of Billy Napier, a lot of Tennessee, Oklahoma, a lot of Arch Manning, all that stuff, even more from Godfrey. You can check out our Monday episodes, myself and Paul Kaharski at 3 o'clock on Mondays. He'll be live today on Thursday at 1 p.m. live from the Sinkers headquarters at Track 1 building in Wedgwood, Houston. So make sure you go check that show out today. You got the Hot Read podcast on Tuesdays and Fridays with Stoney and JT. Lots of great stuff from the network. So make sure you go check that out. And if you like the Preds, of course, the Gold Standard live on Wednesdays as a part of the Lower Broad Hockey community. Go sign up for good reporting over there as well. We just added Adam Vingen to the team, so make sure you check out lowerbroadhockey.com. Constantly evolving, making progress, Nick, and moving forward. I got the Titans winning. You got the Packers. Anything you need to add?
No, let's just figure out how to get my Wi-Fi like 20% better, and we'll make it through the show next time.
We're 80% there. We just got to take out the bad Wi-Fi of the game, and then if we did, the plays would be great. It's like taking out those one mistakes by Will Levis.
Two big router mistakes, and we're away from a perfect show.
There you go. All right, thank you, man. Thank you guys all for hanging out in the comments. Rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up on YouTube, share it on Twitter and Facebook, all that good stuff. Turn on the notifications. We do appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening. If you want to come find me, shoot me a DM or something. I'll be at the game with like 10 of my closest family members and daughters. So I'll buy you a beer. If you listen to this show and you can find me, I'll buy you a beer at the game. That's like $26. So there you go. Otherwise, thanks to Nick. I'm Braden Gall. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys next week.